Hello everyone, welcome back to our React Talk series. Here at Web Dev in 10, we break down web development concepts in just 10 minutes or even less. In the previous video, we explored the useState hook and how it helps us to manage the states in our functional components. Today we'll be tackling another powerful React hook, which is the UseEffect hook. Let's not waste any more time and get right into business. So what exactly is a UseEffect hook? A UseEffect hook allows developers to perform side effects in functional components. Examples of these side effects are data fetching, manually changing the DOM, or performing cleanup tasks when a component is unmounted. That is, when a component is removed from the DOM. Now that we know what the UseEffect hook is used for, let's move on to its syntax. The UseEffect hook takes in a callback function and an optional array of dependencies. This callback function contains the code for the operation you want to run. For example, fetching the data, adding event listeners, setting timeouts, time intervals, any kind of code you want to run. And the array of dependencies is an array containing the values that the callback function depends on. If the array is empty, that means the callback function is only called once. That is on initial render. But if it contains some values, this means that the function will be called or re-rendered every time these values changes. Now that we know what the UseEffect hook is and how it is declared, let's move on to another important aspect of this hook, which is the cleanup function. The cleanup function is an optional callback function returned in the UseEffect callback function. As you can see in this example, a callback function is being returned. This function is called the cleanup function. Just like its name, it is used to clean up or undo any setup or side effects when a component is unmounted or before the next render. To better understand this, let me use this scenario to explain. Let's say you have only one pot in your kitchen and then you decided to cook rice with the pot, and the next day you wanted to cook something else. Before you can use the pot to cook again, you have to wash it first, right? This is exactly what is going on here. The rice in the pot is the code. The process of cooking the rice is running the side effects, which is the code in your callback function. And the process of washing the pot is the cleanup function. So when a component is removed from the DOM, or when the values in our dependency array changes, the cleanup function is called to undo whatever was created by the UseEffect callback function. The cleanup function can be used in several scenarios. Some of the common ones are when using a set timer or set interval function, when adding event listeners, or cancelling data requests, and so on. The cleanup function is not compulsory, however, you don't have to use it, but it is advisable to use it when needed. Now that we know the important aspects of the UseEffect hook, let's move to our code editor to practicalize what we just learned. I already installed my React folder using the command displayed to you on the screen, and I have also done some cleanup in my source folder. I only have the app.js and index.js file, since that's the only thing I'm going to be needing. In the index.js, I already removed the unnecessary imports and also the react.street mode, so we don't have two console logs anytime we use the console log. So you can do that as well. And in my app.js, I also have some code. It's alright if you don't understand what they do now. You can just pause the video and type out everything you see in the code editor. I'll explain what each line of the code does. Now let's run this on our browser. npm start. So I put the browser and code editor next to each other so you can see what's going on immediately I make any changes. Now let's close the terminal. So the first thing I did was import React and the useState hook. I really don't need this React, but I imported the useState hook. Inside our component, I created a new state called data using the useState hook. If you don't understand the useState hook, I advise you go and watch my previous video. I'll put the link in the description below, or you can click the card showing on the left or right side of your screen. Now the next thing I did was create an undo delete function. This function is used to delete our data. It takes in an ID, which is each ID of each social media. We created a new variable called new data, and inside that, we took in the data in our state and filter it and check each item data and only return data whose ID is not equal to the ID we passed in. So we said item.id is not equal to the ID. If you don't understand the filter or map function, just let me know in the comment section below so I can upload a video explaining how they work. Now the next thing we did was set the data as the new data. Inside our component, we returned a section. Inside the section, we did data.map, we mapped with data and returned a div which contains an ND1 and a button. The ND1 displays the social media name, and then we have the delete button. And inside the delete button, we have an onClick event. Inside our onClick event, we call our undo delete function, which takes in the item.id. So anytime we click on delete, we remove that particular item from the data array. So that's how we have our delete functionality, and that's the only thing we have for now in our app.js file. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is declare our useEffect hook so I can show you guys the importance of a dependency array and also how the useEffect hook works. The first thing we're going to do is import our useEffect hook. So now that we have our useEffect hook, we can access it anywhere in our app component. Now let's go below the handle delete function. Right here, we're going to call our useEffect hook. So we are going to declare the useEffect hook just like we saw before. UseEffect, open and close parentheses, and inside we have our callback function and also our dependency array. Inside our callback function, let me just console log hello, for example. And let me remove the dependency array so that I can show you what happens when we don't have a dependency array in our useEffect hook. Let me save this and open our console. To do that, you just have to press Ctrl+Shift+I. And as you can see in our console, we have hello. So fine, the useEffect hook works. When we render the app components, we have our hello. Now let me try to delete a particular data in our array. Let's say I delete Facebook. We have our hello again, which means the useEffect hook's callback function is called again. If I should delete again, we have another hello in our console. So anytime there's a particular change in our app components, if there is no dependency array, whatever code is in our callback function will be re-rendered or rerun. Now let's check if we added dependency array. If I add a dependency array, an empty dependency array, like I said before, if you have an empty dependency array, it means the data will only run, it means the callback function will only run on initial render. So let's save this and refresh. As you can see, as we refreshed it, we have our hello in our console. Now let's try what we did before. Let's delete a particular data in our array. If I delete, we don't have anything in our console. Even though there's a change in our app components, the callback function in our useEffect is not called again, and that's because we have an empty dependency array. This means that only when the app component is rendered initially, the first render, that's the only time the code is going to run. Now that we understand the importance of the dependency array, let's see how it works if there's a particular value in our dependency array. If we have a particular value there, let's see what that does. Let's refresh the browser. Let's use data as the value in our dependency array. So anytime there's a change in the data, the callback function in the useEffect hook is called again or re-rendered. Let's save this. On initial render, we have our hello, just like we did before. And anytime we make any changes, let's say delete, we have another hello in our console. So anytime there's a change in the data, the useEffect callback function is called again. Any value you put inside the dependency array affects or determines when the callback function will be called or re-rendered. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the cleanup function. So the first thing I'm going to do is write our cleanup function just like we did before when I was explaining. So we have return, and then we'll return a callback function. Let me log something to the console so we can see when the cleanup function is called. So let's say clean up. Let's refresh the browser and see this. We have hello, which is the data in our callback function. Let's click on delete. We have our cleanup function, then hello again. So before the code in our callback function is rerun or re-rendered, the cleanup function is called first, so that I can undo anything that was done before to get it ready for the next render. So now let's check some examples of when we use our cleanup function. The first one is when we have a set timer. Let's say let I equals 0, and then const timer is equal to set interval, and this takes in a callback function and the time, which is, let's use 1 second. Inside our callback function, let's increase I by 1, and also console.log high, so we can see it increase. So after every 1 second, I increases by 1. So now how do we use the cleanup function? For the set timer? What you have to do is just go to the cleanup function and then clear interval, and then pass in the timer. So when I refresh my browser, we have our timer increasing by 1. We have I increasing by 1. It might not seem very obvious what the cleanup function is doing here, but it is advisable to have a cleanup function anytime you want to use a timer or you want to add an event listener. So that will be all I'll be doing today. Thanks for joining me. I hope this video helped you understand the useEffect hook and its potential. If you have any question or any concept you would love me to explain, feel free to tell me in the comment section below. Until next time, keep coding, keep learning, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.